Welcome to Leading for Impact, a podcast about what it really takes to lead through complexity, change, and uncertainty while staying grounded in purpose and impact. Each conversation on this show is designed to create space for reflection, not just on what's broken, but on what's possible, what matters, and what must endure. Today's conversation is centered on a question a lot of leaders are wrestling with right now. How do we make 2026 a year of sustainable impact? We're excited to be joined by Tyra Mariani. Tyra is the founder and principal of Advisors and a nationally recognized education and leadership coach who has spent her career helping leaders transform complex systems into engines of equity, access, and lasting impact. From overseeing a $5 billion budget at Chicago Public Schools to shaping policy at the U.S. Department of Education, Tyra has worked across multiple sectors, gained firsthand experience navigating dynamic environments, managing change, and understanding both the challenges and benefits of complex leadership roles. I am also joined by our moderator, Keith Kostreski. Keith brings more than 2 decades of experience in the education industry and edtech. He led teams at Lego Education in Pearson, served as CEO of Curriki, founded Sidekick Group, and co-founded Abode Development, a firm specializing in healthcare and education workforce housing. He holds an MBA from Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management and has led district partnerships at enterprise scale, including nationwide engagements, aligning products, go-to-market, and delivery to drive district and measurable student outcomes. This will be an exciting conversation, and with that, I'll kick it over to Keith to get us going.
Tyra, again, thank you very much for joining us today. Your portfolio and background speaks for itself, and we're thrilled to have you part of the conversation.
And ditto, I might add.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to this.
My name is Keith Kostreski, and, we'll dive right into the content here to be respectful of everyone's time. In education, we talk a lot about change every year and through many decades, but it does feel that for people leading schools and districts right now, this moment feels something else entirely different. It's not just change. It's uncertainty layered on top of uncertainty, economic, political, and human, all at the same time. So today, I really wanted to sit down and talk with someone who has spent her career inside the most complex education systems in the country, not studying them from a distance, but rolling her sleeves up and helping lead them through their hardest moments. So again, our guest today is Tyra Mariani. And after her transition out of her roles at McKinsey and a wonderful portfolio of experiences, Tyra has joined the board of Huddle Up and brings a wonderful perspective to our organization. So Tyra, welcome. Here we go. So you left the precision of the private sector to step into Chicago Public Schools, where you were budget director for a system that at the time served over 400,000 students, managing a multi-billion-dollar budget. When you first walked in, you've called it the belly of the beast. Did you immediately feel the challenge wasn't financial, but human, and that the system was self-exhausted? Or what were some of your initial takeaways from that day one?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I vividly remember, even though it was quite a long time ago. I should start by mentioning that my first role wasn't budget director, but I entered through a fellowship called the Broad Residency, which was designed to give leaders like me who were transitioning from the private sector a more effective entry point into public school systems. So I started actually in an area called school and area management. Given the size of CPS, it was divided into areas. And I would eventually become the budget director about 3 years into my tenure. So luckily, I did not have to jump into the finances right away, but I got to learn the place through the management of our area offices. And then second, I'm not sure I'd describe it as exhausted, though I'm sure it was, and there was and is much reason to be exhausted. I certainly left exhausted, but I'd also describe it as complex. And that was definitely one of the learnings I had in the beginning. There are so many motivations and agendas at play from the council member and the mayor because there was mayoral control of the schools. But even if you don't have that, you still have the elected city council positions, perhaps in your area. There was both so much money and never enough money. countless and competing demands on educators, so many opportunities, and so many things to address. And yes, humans, the factor that makes any organization or goal difficult to achieve, I often say.
Absolutely.
And then you have those little humans to the young adult humans who show up with a ton of potential and talent and their own complexities in a system where, by definition, everything is connected. And you pull one string, and lo and behold, it impacts something else. And so it was both an unbelievable and humbling experience. I said I was going to write a book because my friends in the private sector wouldn't believe it,
Absolutely.
but it was also humbling in terms of understanding why the system was the way that it was.
Wonderful background, and we did overlap a bit, while we spent time in the Windy City.
Yeah.
Um, and for those on, many of those attendees here do operate larger school systems, and some aren't. And what struck me in my time working at CPS and across other larger districts is the layers of human interactions, right? When
Mhm.
you look at that decentralized, yet not quite decentralized leadership, that you do have highly well-intentioned and motivated individuals, but the human element is significant, and the layers of decision making. Um, so a follow-up question to that, talking about the human friction,
Mm,
you had items like principal quality, overcrowding, school closings,
mhm.
and inequity, which is pervasive. Um, how did you address these challenges or problems that don't have clean solutions?
Yeah.
And
No, they're not. Sometimes you wish things were simpler. And I have to say from the outside, it can and is and looks like a large machine. And I also find from the outside, it could be quite easy to oversimplify the degree of complexity that's there. It's like, it's a school, there are teachers, there's a principal. Like, why is this hard to educate all the students? And what I will say is, I figured it out or I saw it happening because the needs come at you one by one. They don't come as it comes as the principal at this school wants another special ed position, and the principal at another school has been unable to bring on a teacher that she wants to hire. You visit one area of the city and you realize the access to resources are strikingly different from other areas of the city. And so even in the instance of overcrowding, where you have a physical geography and there are more students than there are chairs in the school. What do you do about that? And there was what I thought at the time was a creative solution about year-round school because it controls the number of students who are in the school at any given time. Because you might be on for 5 weeks, off for 2 weeks, and
Yep.
everybody has their own schedule. Well, okay, great. And by the way, you can't build a new building tomorrow. The
Yep.
students are there right now. The families are there right now. What do you do? And so this creative solution existed. And while it seemed and it was actually better for student outcomes because you didn't have as long of a time span to have that learning gap.
Right.
But then you realize, well, what does that mean for the families? And if you are families, immigrant families, maybe you actually spend the summers in Puerto Rico.
Big.
Or what do you do when normally you are taking care of that child, or you figure out childcare for them in the summer learning? Well, what do you do when summer learning is now every 2 weeks? And so you think about the change is not only impacting the school, but the entire community itself.
Right. Absolutely.
And this now creative and better for student outcome solution is now not necessarily better for families. So those kinds of issues and needs were popping up constantly. That's the humbling part of like, oh, this isn't so
Yes.
simple. This isn't widgets that we're trying to fix here.
Absolutely. And we'll touch on it a little bit later, but then the thought of when you're extending the school year that way, wonderful opportunity for students, but how do you staff appropriately? It's
Exactly.
not just the teachers or supervisors in the classroom, but the students with specialized needs that
Right.
open up a whole other opportunity for growth, but also a challenge with staffing. So we'll touch on that a little bit later, but I'm glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that.
Yeah, no, great ad, and that's the thing, like, everybody has an opinion and a motivation about
Right.
how it should look and how it impacts them, and so trying to bring that together in a solution that works for all can be really challenging.
So let's shift a bit now here to great background to help frame the discussion. How about today? So you've led through economic cycles and leadership transitions, probably many during your tenure, and major policy shifts, both at the local and federal level. Um, when you step back, and I know your recent conversations at a national forum probably instilled that again. When you look at the K-12 landscape, how do you characterize the moment we're in right now?
Well, one could say disruption. I tend to think of it as chaos. It is it is significant, and look, our systems have always seen waves, as you pointed out. We have waves of dollars flowing,
Right.
as well as system priorities, particularly with each presidency and what their priorities are at the federal level. But that all relates to the macroeconomic environment.
Right.
Those things have always shaped and impacted the education system and students. And then that also is true at the state and local level. Dollars flow, right? In terms of both who's in office and how well it's being funded. This time, I think, is especially different as we witness the dismantling of the US Department of Education, for one. This is more structural when, for example, you essentially no longer have an Office of Civil Rights, which protects students and their families from discrimination and unfair treatment. So if a student with disability, as you mentioned, is not getting the services he or she needs, or there's a chronic problem that's happening at that district level, where do you go to? Who do you escalate to? So that's part of the chaos, is that some of those systems of support, if you will, of resolution are no longer there. And when I think it also presents an opportunity though, which is it feels like it was dismantled or is being dismantled overnight, but it's also going to take time to come back together and to
Absolutely.
rebuild it, which of course presents an opportunity to build new and better models of our system. So this time, as I mentioned, it's more significant. You've got ICE raids and its impact on student attendance. You have a rise in gun violence. You have the COVID dollars going away. But then there are also positive and significant shifts like AI and personalized learning
Right.
or blended, hybrid, and flexible models of learning, student well-being. So it feels like this time it's more than disruption. It's almost like chaos on steroids
Right.
because there are so many significant disruptions, from technology to policy that are impacting our schools and systems.
Wonderful. This could be a much larger discussion, as we all know.
Always, always.
um, so, what resonates with me here is the comment of being a student centered policy and initiatives, but they really have to be teacher led.
Yes.
And so, shifting a bit there on supporting teachers with the outcome of providing the right environment for learning and the students to be an environment to breed success. Um, when you listening to you describe the moment, it sounds like the hardest part isn't one single issue. Um, so when you're from your perspective, we know nationally there's teacher shortages on recruitment and retention. Um, what does teacher attrition reveal about how well or how poorly systems are supporting both teachers and students? You have that the two needs, and if you share a little bit of your perspective on that, and I think some of your hope for the future, and you alluded to some of the the innovation that's is possible and how to integrate that. So
Yeah. Well, so one is we've seen, I'll start by acknowledging we've seen a proliferation of opportunities for teachers with the growth of technology. That is, I'm sure we'll come back to, but I think it presents a tremendous opportunity that then increases where teachers can go and what they can do on any given day or month or school year. It of course reveals that the system itself is overwhelming. It's been, decades probably of the increasing demand on the teacher, the desire for the teacher to be a therapist and ensure that they are fed and ensure that, the federal reporting demands are met, to parent engagement. Like the list is long and the complexity for any given student is only increasing, particularly and when we think about mental uh, well-being. And so I think it reveals that it's not working, that teachers are feeling overwhelmed, educators are feeling overwhelmed, and there was a recent survey I saw. It's actually just at I spoke at the Broad Forum last week, and I was in a breakout about keeping teachers that mentioned, I think it was something like 75% of teachers mentioned that they were asked to do more than their role, that they were asked to do lots of things in a school. Well, imagine showing up for a job thinking you're there to do one thing, which is already hard as it is, and then you're asked to
Totally.
do that much more. So we're putting a lot of pressure on the people who, matter the most, and then therefore not making it sustainable for them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that perspective. So I get a transition here with a few minutes left in our conversation. Um, when you look at leaders and you're fresh off of of the Broad Symposium, what would you say is the North Star that will help them decide what to protect and what to let go of, and where to invest their energy when you are constantly pulled and pushed and pulled in different directions with these evolving in during these evolving times? And I guess if you share a little bit about that, you alluded to the technology integration, but also the weaving in of the human aspect. So it's
Yeah.
those, what can you let go of to better meet the needs of students and teachers, but what are some things that you should hold on to from a leadership perspective?
Yeah. Well, look, the best educators, the highest performing schools are those that have remained focused on students and their well-being and their educational success. I don't care what case study you look at, they have that laser focus and they listen to people who have a critical role and who are aligned, even outside, right? Even advocates that are aligned to having that high quality education for all students and acknowledging we're not giving
Right.
a high quality education to all students. And so when your job is about self-preservation rather than doing what's best for students, you're in dangerous territory. So I find in any role that I've had, having that laser focus and allowing the rest to sort of fall by the side of the road, as they say,
Right.
is what distinguishes, high performance and great outcomes from those that don't.
Well, you took my closing question here. If you had one mindset shift or decision leaders could make this year that would move them closer to that North Star, just any closing advice or
Yeah, it
guidance?
it is just that. I mean, you're right, I guess I did
Yeah, no,
answer.
you're just fine. No, it's great.
But no, it really does get back to how do I support my educators and how do I support my students? And in the age of personalized learning and the age of flexible and remote ways of working,
Hmm.
how do we extend the village
Yes.
of who supports our students and how we provide services to them? So, aside from that laser focus, is also considering creative, innovative, non-traditional solutions to meeting that goal and that mission.
Well, I think I might make a T-shirt of "Extend the Village." I love that closing comment. It is. It's as you alluded to as well, it is not without its challenge with more stakeholders and advocates and the layers, but it is how we will succeed in serving students and teachers in our communities. So,
Really.
Tyra, thank you so very much. I want to sincerely thank you for such a thoughtful and grounding conversation. We're grateful for your time and perspective and the leadership you bring to this conversation and to the team at Huddle Up. It's wonderful to have you and to spend more time with you. Again, thank you everyone for listening. This series exists to support the people who touch the lives of young people every day: teachers, administrators, specialists, families, and the broader community, especially in moments of uncertainty and change that we have right now. We'll be continuing this conversation on a monthly basis, so please follow Leading for Impact with Huddle Up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts, while we'll be sharing future episodes. Thank you all very much, Tyra. I appreciate you, and thanks all for joining.